Hi, so today we're going to be talking about all things to do with vibrato. So what is it and what do we use it for? Well, simply put, vibrato is just the oscillation, a regulated oscillation from a note to just beneath it, back up to the note and beneath it again. We never go from the note and above the note, it's always from below to the note. Otherwise it sounds sharp. We'll get to that later. And we use vibrato to add expression and help us create a musical line and a phrase throughout the piece. You may have heard people discussing arm vibrato, wrist vibrato, finger vibrato, and wondering which one is for you. Personally speaking, I don't like to isolate any part of the body or my arm when I'm talking about the fiddle. For me, the important thing is that we have freedom and relaxation at all times. And the nitty-gritty of vibrato is in the end joint, the bit which actually connects our arm to the string. And in this case, it's this end joint. It doesn't matter how much arm movement you've got, if this end joint isn't flexible, you're not going to alter the pitch of the string, which is essentially what we're doing. We're just changing the vibrating length of the string. Simple as that. As with pretty much all things to do with the violin, I like to play on the pads of my fingers, not on the tips. In other words, I have a full fleshy pad covering the string, not this. And the reason for that is, well, there are a few reasons actually. Apart from anything else, you get a softer sound, you can shape the vibrato better, you have a bigger coverage of vibrato, a bigger vibrato swing. But of course, on top of that, we should always be free to shift up and down the fingerboard freely. And if we're playing on the tips of our fingers, it becomes a lot more difficult. So again, aim to play on the pads of your fingers and you'll find vibrato a lot more easy to play, but also it'll register better and you'll be able to alter the width of your vibrato, which gives more expression. We should always consider how much vibrato we are going to use in any musical context. So as an example, and generally speaking, Baroque and classical playing doesn't really require a full-blooded Tchaikovsky or Sibelius style vibrato. If I play I don't need much. I wouldn't play. Doesn't really work. You know, bacon sandwiches work really well with brown sauce, but maybe a beautiful piece of cod. You know, so you need to regulate. Think of your vibrato like a sauce. Sometimes I like to use what I call a background vibrato. So if I'm playing something, maybe some semiquavers, a nice passage, for example, maybe from the Beethoven concerto, there isn't time to vibrate every note. Not going to work. And also, if I use too much vibrato in a passage like that, the intonation becomes very vague and approximate because my wrist is moving too much for the music. So what I use in an instance like that, I use background vibrato where I hardly move at all. Keep the hand just very light, hardly move at all, but it just imbues a little bit of something and resonance into the pitch. Rather than So that's just background vibrato where I just move a little bit, just like a shimmer. So if I'm playing anything quick, that's just enough, just to add that little bit of something. And this leads me nicely onto when not to use vibrato. Obviously sometimes the composer will ask not to use vibrato, sends a vibrato, don't use vibrato. If I was playing semiquavers as an accompaniment, perhaps in a classical piece, and by the way, that's sautier. Did you check out the video on sautier? It's an important stroke. If you've not seen it yet, check it out. But if I'm playing, I wouldn't add any vibrato whatsoever. The pitch changes. So there's an instance where I wouldn't have any vibrato at all. Keep a very still hand and just use the rhythm to make the music. Now sometimes conductors say to the orchestra, vibrate before you play. Doesn't work. What they're really asking for is a singing sound immediately, and that's fine. So if we all vibrate before we play the pitch, some people in the section are going to be on the kind of back swing, while others are on the forward swing. So we're just going to end up with a mush of intonation. That's very different to doing what the conductors may be asking for, which is a vibrant sound. So what we do, we play the note, and our first action is to move backwards. This is a good exercise, by the way. So we start straight away and vibrate immediately. That's very different to vibrating before. And in any case, from my experience, what we end up with is a load of players sitting there. Before we start to play, the left hand's going like Billy-O, and then as soon as we start, we go, okay, here we go. So they stop in any case. So maybe ask your leader to have a word with the conductor at tea time. Okay, time to practice. So maybe grab your fiddle and pause the video. We'll work together. You may have come across an idea called knocking, and what that is where we have a note well, the word knocking I'm not so keen on. It sounds a little bit wooden, and so I think of the word kneading. So I'm kneading the string with my finger. Bear in mind, remember, it's the end knuckle that's the business end. And so I would set the metronome to around crotchet 40, something like that. And very slowly play quavers. Then triplets. And then semi-quavers, sextuplets, and build again. That's a very useful way to practice vibrato, getting the motion fluid and fluent. By the way, if you enjoyed my videos, then please do get in touch and ask me any questions you like, or maybe suggest what you might like for some more content. But please do like and subscribe to my channel, and it really does help me develop the channel, and so I can help a little more. So thank you in advance. So once we've got the actual motion under control and our fingers are moving freely, again with our arms and elbows and wrist, but then we need to add music. And the quickest way I've found to help with this is to come up with maybe your favourite song or a nursery rhyme. For the moment, let me use Happy Birthday. That seems to be something that everybody's pretty familiar with. And all I do is I don't play the notes, I play the rhythm. So, day to you, happy birthday. Might seem basic, it's a great way to develop your vibrato. I think it's probably fair to say that the fourth finger is the tricky one to vibrate with, and I have a little trick for that. If I need a fourth finger vibrato, all I do is I put the third finger underneath and pretend to vibrate the third finger. And you know, that's a great way to develop a true legato, is have fingers down. Again, we've spoken about that in left hand legato. Check out the video, it's all in my library. And so if you have your fingers down while we move from one note to another, so again, that's a way to play a true legato, and the vibrato will connect from one finger to another. There's nothing worse than the kind of on-off vibrato that you hear. It just sounds lumpy. So here comes a final exercise that my teacher gave me. He told me it was a Russian vibrato exercise. It's really quite simple for the left hand, but it's very useful, and we can build in the legato and make sure that we have full control over the vibrato. Here it is, and the music is down here. One final thing, remember whereabouts on the fiddle you're playing. If you're down here on the G string, you're going to need a full vibrato swing. If you're up here, you're going to cover about half an inch of notes. So just bear in mind, if you're up top, narrower vibrato. Down the bottom, you can allow it to be a bit more chocolatey. See you next time. Good luck.